Hi everyone, thank you for watching my videos. In my last video, we have seen what is libafl and what are the different components, how can we install libafl on our system, and what are the dependencies which is required. So in this video, we are going to see a very simple fork server based fuzzer which has been provided with libafl. We will basically go through its code. We will try to understand what are the different components which has been used and how this fuzzer actually works. And then what we will do is that we will modify this fork server based fuzzer to fuzz our diamond C program. So I think there are no major changes required. We just need to change few fields basically in the command line arguments, the way it takes the command line arguments, and the rest of the code we will keep same. And there are few more options which we might need to change while we run this fuzzer. So let's start. First thing we need to do is that we need to go to the libafl directory, and when you go to libafl directory, you will see that there is a directory named fuzzers. So this is the directory which contains all the example fuzzers which are provided with libafl, and each of these fuzzer explain a specific concept or a specific component, you can say. So let us go to fuzzers directory and check the directory listing. So you will see that it contains a lot of fuzzers, like there is baby fuzzer, there is baby fuzzer underscore js, there is fork server simple, frida, generic in memory, and there are a lot of fuzzers. So what I found is that this fork server simple fuzzer, this is the simplest one to start with, and I decided to use this fuzzer in this video. What we are going to do first is that we will see how can we compile this fuzzer and how can we run this fuzzer, and we will also see the directory structure of this fuzzer so that we get an idea of what are the different files which are required when you want to build a libafl based fuzzer. So let us go ahead and see what are the different directory contains. We will go to fork server simple directory, and you can see that there are various files like build.rs, there is cargo.toml, there is a make file, readme.md file. So let us open and see what does readme.md file contains. It basically contains a step to compile this fuzzer and run this fuzzer. So it doesn't contain much details. That is fine, and let us go ahead and see what this build.rs file contains. So remember that this fuzzer has been written in the Rust language. So what you are going to see over here is the Rust code, and you may need a little bit of familiarity or experience with Rust language. It is easy, you can spend some time, you can learn it. It is not a complex thing. So you can see that build.rs file, it basically contains some code. If you see over here, it contains AFL URL, which is basically URL of AFL++, and then there is a main function over here. So what it does is that it takes current working directory environment and then current directory, and it will save it. Basically it will take current working directory over here. Then it will take the path of AFL, which is your current directory, and then AFL++, and it will take the path of AFL GCC, and then basically it is checking if AFL is present on the system. Basically if AFL++ is present in this particular directory or not. If it is not there, then it will clone this particular URL, it will download AFL++, and then it will make call, it will basically make AFL++ on the system, so that you get all the AFL compiler wrapper like AFL GCC or AFL CLink Plus or AFL CLink Fast, everything you will get it over here. And then it is checking for AFL GCC path if AFL GCC is available. Basically what this the script program is going to do is that it will use AFL GCC to compile the C program, and later on it will fuzz that using fork server. So this is the simple thing. You can see that it is calling makefile over here, and then it is compiling this program. The program name is program.c. This is the program we are going to fuzz, and then it is giving output file. So the output file will be saved inside current directory, then target, release, and program name. So this is the name of the output file, and these are the directory. So and rest is simple. I mean, nothing much over here. So basically this build.rs file, it will download AFL++, it will compile it. If it is not present, then it will use AFL GCC to compile your C program, and it will copy it to the target and then release directory. So this is what it does. It is pretty simple and straightforward, nothing much complex. And now the second file you will see is cargo.log. So this is we are not going to see, it is just a log file. And another file we are going to see now is cargo.toml. So let us see what does this file contain. So this file actually contains some Rust related information. Basically, when you want to compile a program, it contains all this information. Like there is a package. So what is the package name? It is folk server _ simple. Its version, author name, which is toka, and edition. And you can actually go to this URL, that is doc.rustling.org, and you can see all these different fields, like what does profile.dev means. We are saying panic is equal to abort, and what does profile release will do. So panic is equal to abort, and LTO, that is link time optimization, is equal to true. Basically it will optimize your program at the link time. And there is code genuinely, there is optimization label over here. And another section over here is dependencies. So it is saying that libafl is required, and its path is over here. So you can actually go to this URL and you can see the different fields, which are different segments which are present over here. You can read about them. And to start with, we are simply going to copy this. We don't need to modify anything over here. So it is a pretty simple and straightforward file. Nothing much over there. And then there is a file called makefile. So in makefile you will notice that there is a fuzzer name, which is folkserver.simple. So always remember that whenever you use libafl, your output is going to be a fuzzer. It is not that libafl is a tool which you will simply run it and it will start fuzzing. It is not possible. You need to create your own fuzzer, and basically you can use any of the example fuzzer which is present with libafl, but you can create your own custom fuzzer. But the output of libafl is going to be a fuzzer. So do not get confused. I mean, there is no such utility that you will simply run like AFL fuzz or honk fuzz, or you will simply run some lib fuzzer program and it will start fuzzing. You basically need to put in some efforts over here. So the fuzzer name is folkserver_simple project directory, and it is a typical make file. If you are compatible with Linux and the make system, it's pretty straightforward. As you can see, when you do a make file, what it will do is that it will do cargo build -- release, which is basically a Rust build command. It will create a release build of your fuzzer. Then it will copy your fuzzer name, that is folkserver_simple, to this target_release directory. So if you recall what build.rs was doing, it was compiling your program and it was copying it as a executable to target release and then program file. So the executable name was program, and in this case there will be one more executable, which is the actual fuzzer, which will be called as folkserver_simple. So this is the fuzzer, and it will fuzz that program. We'll go ahead and see once we compile it. That will clarify things. And when you do make clean, it will basically it will clear this fuzzer name, which is folkserver_simple. When you do a run, it will basically use start set C0. It will basically bind to a CPU core that is 0, and it will run this fuzzer, that is folkserver_simple. It will basically run that executable. And there are some case commands, so they are not needed right now. And so this is what the makefile contains. We have already seen readme.md. So now let us go ahead, and what we can do is that we can build this fuzzer. So we can either type make, or we can run cargo build release. So let me try with make and see if it works. So yeah, So it will take some time, maybe a few seconds, to compile this fuzzer binary. And you can see that it is compiling fork server underscore simple, which is a binary file. What it will do is that it will copy this binary to this target underscore release directory. So if we go to our target underscore release directory now, you can see that there is a fork server underscore simple file, which is an executable file, and this is actually a fuzzer. So the actual name of it should be fork server underscore simple underscore fuzzer, just to avoid any confusion. And you will see that there is a program file which has been compiled over here. So this is the file which is going to be fuzzed by this fuzzer. So this is the fuzzer. Fork server underscore simple is actually fuzzer, which you can see like when you use EFL. So you use a binary called EFL-fuzz. So this is that binary. This binary is responsible for doing all the fuzzing, and this program file, it is actually the program which you want to fuzz. So when you want to run that, you can simply run this command cargo run release. So it will basically go to release folder and it will run this fuzzer. So yeah, you can see that our fuzzer is running. Our is using shared memory fuzzing feature. I will explain it. And you can see that fork server is up over here. So it is running the target release fork server simple. This is the fuzzer, and you will notice that there is only one client. We are basically running only one instance of this fuzzer. Corpus is one. We basically have one file in the corpus, and initially the objective was 0. So objective is like something like when a program is crashed, that is our objective, right? So whenever it crashes, the count will be increased by 1, or if it finds any new like program path, that can also be an objective. And executions will display the total number of execution, like first is 1, then it is keeps on increasing over here, and execution per second is basically the speed which we are getting. So I think we have already found one crash, and if you see, the corpus has been increased. So initially it was 1, then 2, 3, 4. So right now corpus is total corpus is 4. Objective is only 1. I mean, we have only found one crash, and total execution, as you will see, is something like it's more than 2 lakhs or something, and execution per second. So you will notice that the speed we are getting is pretty decent. That is like 3,700 execution per second. So this is how you run the fuzzer. You basically need to compile the fuzzer and you need to run the fuzzer. And cargo command are straightforward. Cargo build dash release will build your fuzzer. Cargo run dash release will run your fuzzer. So it is as simple as that. You can run any fuzzer in the example directory which has been given over here. And now let me show you the corpus directory first. So if you go to the corpus, you will see that there is only one corpus file, which is this file. And if we this file, what does it contain? So you will notice that it contains a thing which is like a, so it doesn't contain much. And if we go to the crashes folder, you will see that we have few crashes. We actually have 3 crashes. This is because I run this multiple times, but actual crash is only 1 over here. So if you see any of this, you will see that it contains like BADAA, and the second file will contain BADA, and first file BAD0. So as you might have identified that the program is checking if it contains a string like BAD, then it will crash. So let us go ahead and see the program source code, the program which we have first, what it is crashing actually. So when we go to the source, you can see that there are 2 files over here. So one is main.rs and second one is the program.c. I will come to main.rs in a while, but let us see the program.rs file, because this is the program which we have first. So you will notice that it is a very simple, very small C program, and it contains a main function which expects two parameters. Then it is basically reading some data from std standard input. It is opening a file, and inside that we'll come to this line later. You will see that it is checking if buffer 0 is equal to b and buffer 1 is a and buffer 2 is d, then it simply aborts. So basically, if the input string contains BAD, then this program will crash because we are calling abort over here. And it is a simple C program just to demonstrate concept of fork server. So another thing you will notice over here is that it contains some AFL related function call or keyword, like some macros like underscore AFL underscore first underscore init and unsigned character buffer is equal to underscore AFL first disk is buffer. So basically these are used for shared memory mode. And if you recall our persistent mode tutorial, you can actually go to my older video and you can see that in that what we used to do is that we used to continuously loop around a particular kind of code with this speed. But there is one more concept. I mean, if fuzzer doesn't want to write the file every time at the disk and want to read it from there, then what you can do is that you can use shared memory. And in case of shared memory, what will happen is that you need to use this keyword that is, I think, very specific to AFL++. It will write all the test cases to shared memory instead of disk, and then when your fuzzer needs it, it will basically access that memory and will read the mutated data from there. So that will actually speed up your fuzzing process, because your fuzzer don't need to read and write data from the disk. So that is very helpful with the fuzzing performance. Whenever you want to fuzz, I will try to use this shared memory mode whenever possible. So this is for that. These two lines, what you see is that you will get all the mutated data in buffer, and you need to use this AFL fuzz and initialize for your main program. These two things are when you want to use shared memory mode. But if you don't want to use this line, say if you comment out this line, and if you comment out this line, then if you simply want to use normal file-based mode, then you can uncomment this line, where what it will do is that it will basically take one buffer, it will open this file which has been provided over here, and then it will read some data to this buffer, and then it will check this values over here. So this is also you can do, but since shared memory is very fast, you can use that. So this is what this program does, and this is how you can run the fuzzer. And now we'll come to the main topic, that is where is the fuzzer over here. We have seen how can we compile, we have seen what is the program which we have fuzzed, but we also seen what is the build.rs file and where is the actual fuzzer. So the actual fuzzer is inside this main.rs file. If you see it over here, you will see that it is a small file of around 142 lines of code, and this is the actual fuzzer which we have compiled. This is the fuzzer which we compiled as fork server underscore simple. It contains a lot of libafl related keywords or stuff which we have discussed in our last video. If you are not comfortable with this, I will suggest you to go to my previous video and look at what all these things means, like feedback or executor or mutators. And so when you open main.rs file, you will see something like this. Now this is the source code of the fuzzer, which is we call as a fork server underscore simple fuzzer. So you will notice that it contains various components as we discussed in our last video, like it has some boards, it has corpus, events, executor, feedbacks, fuzzer, etc. So basically whatever is required to create a fuzzer is present over here. And now what we can do is that we can have a look at different components over here and how this fuzzer has been created, how this fuzzer actually works. So now you can see various components, like you can see some boards over here, and you can also see some tracks over here. And if you want to know more about them, then I will suggest you to go to libafl documentation on rustlang.org. You can get more details over here. But in short, you can consider them as a small parts of the fuzzer which performs various operations. And there are basically a lot of modules, like say you can have a CPU module, you can have a launcher, you can have OS. So as you might have noticed that there can be different types of CPU, so you actually need some kind of abstraction layer which can avoid all this unnecessary operation which you need to do. So you can have a something like CPU module which takes care of all the abstraction for you. And similarly, you can have different OS, like you can have Mac, or you can have Android, or you can have Windows. So you can have a module called OS which will provide abstraction to all the underlying OS, and you basically have a standard set of feature to work with and standard set of functions or APIs or whatever you want to work with. So these are the basically, you can say, small module which you can use in your fuzzer. And there is another concept which is specific to RUTs, which is called threads. So threads objects are basically when you need to do something at the runtime. I mean, it's like, consider them as a polymorphism if you have done some object-oriented programming with C++, and you know the concept of virtual function. So not exactly like same, but something like that. You can consider them as that they will decide at runtime which function you want to use at the runtime. So that is what you can call as a thread. Again, you can go to the Rust language documentation and you can read more about them, but I will just cover them in the short so that you know what we are talking about. Okay, now let's go ahead and see how does a fork server based fuzzer works. And in the next video, we will go through the source code of the main.rs program, which was mentioned in the fork server based fuzzer over here. I'm not going to cover that source code over here because this will become unnecessarily complex and this video will become too large. So I would like to avoid that. So let us see how does a fork server based fuzzer works. In case of fork server based fuzzer, what happens is that the fuzzer will take the program which you want to fuzz, and then it will create a process of that program. And then when the control reaches to the main function, it will basically call a Linux system call that is called fork. And what this call will do is that it will create the exact same clone of your process. Let's call it process 1, and it will create another process which let's call it process 2. Now this process 2 is what your fuzzer will use, and what the fuzzer will do is that it will give all the input to this process 2. It will basically give a single input to this process 2, and it will monitor its behavior. So if it resulted in a say timeout, or say if it resulted in a crash, then it will save this crash, it will save this input file into the crashes folder. It will depending upon your configuration or fuzzer, it can save the timeout or hangs input into a hangs or timeout folder as well. And then if this input, if it resulted in a new code path, then it will update the shared bitmap. Basically, a fuzzer maintains a shared bitmap to trace the program execution. Basically, what it will do is that there is a concept of basic block, like there are two program blocks, and if your control transfer from a block A, if it goes to block B, then what it will do is that it will create a shared bitmap, and it will assign some unique ID to these blocks, and it will ideally it will do an XOR. In case of AFL, basically it will do a block ID 1, this will be a block ID 2. It will XOR that, and it will go to this particular location. It will increase the hit count by 1. Every time your control reaches from A to B, it will XOR them, and it will increase the hit count by 1. So that actually gives an idea that how many times this particular code box has been or this code path has been taken by this particular input. So this is in short. Basically, AFL uses something like right shifting this location, so that to differentiate if control is getting transferred from A to B or from B to A, but that is I'm not discussing over here. And so in this case, when you give the input to this fork process, and once the execution is finished, either it will result in a crash, or it will result in a timeout, or it will result in a new code path. Depending upon that, your fuzzer will take all the necessary action, like saving the crashing input, or updating the coverage bitmap, and then it will basically close, or it will kill that process, and or this process will exit. So it will loop around, it will again call the fork system call, and this time it will create another process which is again a clone of this same process, that is process 1, and this let us call it process 3, and it will again perform the same operation. It will basically give another input, another mutated input to this process. It will monitor it for any crashes or any hangs or any new code path, and if it gets any new code path, it will again update your shared bitmap, and if it get any crash, will again save this particular input in the crashes folder. If it gets in any hang, then it will save this input in hangs folder. So this is a very short introduction of how a fork server based fuzzer works, and I hope that it has given you at least a basic understanding of how this fork server based fuzzer works. Now in the next video we'll go through the source code, and we will see how the different components of libafl are utilized to perform the fuzzing operation and to check the states and everything. So till next video, stay safe and enjoy, and I hope that you like this video. Please do like, subscribe and share my channel. That will motivate me to create more such videos. Thank you and goodbye.